So welcome. How many of you are here for the first time? All right.
Oh.
Excellent. All right, good. So if you're visiting us for the first time, or if you're here and you're a non-member, please consider becoming a membership of Navesink Maritime. Okay, we do programs like this every month, at least from February until May, and then again from September until November. This gentleman in the back has membership forms. He's happy to help you fill it out. It really helps us to run all of our programs throughout the year, especially talks such as this one. So we appreciate your support. Tonight we have a wonderful speaker who is going to talk about ice boating on the Navesink and Shrewsbury River. Before we get to that, please be considerate and turn your phones to whatever that other mode is, the non-ringing mode. So, but yeah, we do these programs. It's the third Wednesday of every month. So third Wednesday of every month, February, March, April, May, you'll find us here, September, October, November. We cover all range of maritime topics, history, diving, exploration. We try to keep it as local as possible, but sometimes we venture quite far to the edges of the globe. So I'm Stephen Schweikert. I'm the programming chair. I probably should have said that first. But now I'm going to hand off to Bob Markoff, who is our chair of membership, and he's going to introduce our speaker for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. As he said, I'm the membership person. I don't want to take up a lot of time talking about membership, but membership to our organization is very important. Primarily, we're a 501c3, not for profit organization. And when we apply for make a lot of these presentations and other activities possible, the first thing these organizations look at when they're determining who may be successful to obtain a grant and what sort of a membership we have. So our membership number is important, and our fee for membership is really very nominal in today's world. But thank you.
How much? How much?
Well, right now, an individual membership is $30. A dual membership, which entitles, I hesitate to say a husband and wife, but certainly a husband and wife. But if you have a friend and you want to share a membership, you can split the $50 membership, because we would prefer the dual membership. It makes life easier. We're all volunteers, and it just, the bookkeeping is so much easier. If you'd like to become a lifetime membership, you can guarantee your membership for the rest of your life for just $500, which is really a steal.
Depending how old you are.
In my case, not so much. But and we also have a $5 a month membership, which is also a nice bargain, an easy way you wouldn't even know the money's going out, and a $10 a month membership. But those are all available, and hopefully, if you're not a member yet, you'll take a serious look at it. But we're very fortunate this evening to have Jeff Smith, who's one of the world-renowned Red Bank ice boat sailors. In fact, Jeff had a beautiful ice boat that he just recently sold to another ice boat club member, a Yankee class ice boat.
Correct.
And
Best Cadillac of ice boats.
yes, and in addition to being a ice boat sailor, Jeff is a very accomplished soft water sailor who has done a lot of cruising around the East Coast and even other places in the United States. I don't want to take up a lot of time because Jeff's going to have an opportunity to present himself, but Jeff is a very accomplished professional photographer, and I'm sure Jeff's done a lot of other things. And his pleasant wife is here this evening too. Hopefully she has a chair here.
Stand up, dear. Stand up.
But again, thank you to everyone for coming out this evening. And I don't know if Rick wanted to say a few words, the president.
Yeah.
Great. So, Jeff, it's
Great.
my pleasure to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Bob,
Thank you.
for that very nice introduction. I'll try. Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. I have no bikes, so it's got to be natural projection. Uh, I'm a past Commodore, been a member for about 30 years, sit on the board of trustees. Uh, had a great Yankee class boat, which we traveled up and down the east and west coasts, racing them at that point. Lack of ice recently has put a little damper on that. But a new class has come up. Well, it's actually an old class. The Class A stern steers are now a very, very active group, and they're the ones who do all the traveling. And they are having a great time with those boats. On Saturday, there are going to be a ton of ice boats on Bud Lake, and the entryway is the pavilion. And you better get there early if you're going to find a place to park, and you'll probably have to park outside the parking lot. But it'll be a spectacle. But ice boat racing, like sailboat racing, and those who are familiar, it's not really a spectator sport unless you've got the ice boats coming right in front of the club, which where we are. You don't get to see much, but it's quite a spectacle. People putting their boats together, taking off, coming back, breaking them, fixing them if possible, loading them up dejected. It's all part of the sport. You build them, you sail them, you break them, you fix them. And most of these boats are more or less home built. There are professionals who do it, but a lot of people do it themselves. And almost all of the repairs, unless it's a major injury to the boat, are going to be done by the owner and his friends and his wives and girlfriends and anybody he can enlist. So I'm going to start out with a Thomas Edison film from 1901. And Thomas Edison came down to Red Bank to show ice boating because it moved. And when he was establishing his film company, he wanted something that moved. He wanted boxing, he wanted trains, and in this case, he wanted ice boats. So we'll start out from there, and then I'll go on to a little bit of another presentation. These boats are lateen rig boats, and ice boating went through a number of different stages in terms of the rigs. And in 1901, all of them, everybody on the Shrewsbury had a lateen rig. Then eventually they transitioned to gaff rigs and then Marconi rigs. Let me tell you a little bit about the video. The film for this video does not exist as far as I know, but these are paper negatives, which is what was required to do a copyright. So they are in the Library of Congress. The original film is not, but this was reproduced off paper negatives. So I'm imagining that the film version of this was a lot clearer and smoother, etc. Now let me also say, I think that every person in that film did not have what we now consider required safety equipment. I don't think there were any creepers, which are spikes on the bottom of your shoes. It looked to me like some of the guys even had lifts. None of the women had creepers. We don't put 8 people on an ice boat anymore. It's dangerous, and nobody was wearing a helmet. But they all lived. Some of these are not quite in the order that I have put them in. Now, this is a screen which gives more or less most of the information you might need. If you want to take a picture of it with your phone, or what I'll do at the end of the presentation is I'll leave one of these up on the screen. And if you want to take a picture, you can get all the info. The symbol of Red Bank is the ice boat. I'm not sure when they put it in, but the Red Bank was, and there's not only the North Shrewsbury, but there is the South Shrewsbury. The North Shrewsbury is now called the Navesink. But ice boating is a very important part of the town's history. And there was a time, and I'll get to this. Now, here's some of the safety equipment. These are called bear claws or ice picks. You wear them around your neck, and they're in case you go into the water. No fun. I've never done it myself, but I know plenty of people who have. And these things will at least keep you close to the surface of the ice until somebody can come out with a ladder or something to help pull you onto the ice. Now, okay, so, and then these are the creepers. Helmet required. Now, one of the things is this is an America's Cup boat from the previous America's Cup. It's America. And you can see that in a lot of ways, this boat is in the same configuration as a stern steerer ice boat. This is Bob Colt's master shipwright. These are boats that are coming around the weather mark, ready to go on a downwind hitch. Thank you. One of the things about ice boating is that the downwind legs, like softwater sailing a lot, is the hardest thing. Downwind in light air is just a killer. You've got to often just beam reach across, keep the boat running, because you really don't want to push them, right? You lose a lot of time in a race and you sweat. It's terrible. So what happens when you're coming up into the weather mark is if you're coming in hot, which you should be, because you want to establish that momentum going downwind. And with ice boating, because there's so little friction, you've almost always got the apparent wind in front of you. It's not, and when you drive on an ice boat, it's just a little bit of a flicker and the sail snaps over a little bit. It's not like in a soft water boat where you have it all the way out and then you pull it in and then you go off on the next jibe. So this is Mark Hansick in the Rebel. This is me in the MLAM, and he's beating me, my God. And gotta say, I saw the ass end of that ice boat a lot more than I wanted to. So here comes Mark going around the weather mark. Now he's got a real good shot at coming down and keeping the momentum up. And generally speaking, you don't want to go directly downwind, but you want to tack downwind. But remember, unless you've stopped in a very awkward position, the apparent wind is always in front of you. This is the first class ice boat rocket, and we're going to see a lot of that in the videos. Bob Polish, the master shipwright, was very instrumental in building this. It's a monstrous boat. Parts of it were underneath the Ice Boat Club in terribly deteriorated conditions. And about 10 years ago, a bunch of guys got together and said, we're going to restore this boat. And restoring this boat meant basically building it up from scratch. And there was a contingent in the club who didn't want to see this boat rebuilt for two reasons. They thought it would never get finished. but because of John Holian, Bob Pulsh, and the whole array of members. It took 10 years and it took a lot of money, but it was finally done. One of the reasons that people didn't want to see it is they were afraid that this boat, which is a class 1, would have to race the Jack Frost on the Hudson for what's called the Van Nostrand Cup, or the Ice Cup Challenge of America. And they were afraid that because the Jack Frost had been on the ice for years and years, that they would win. And we've kept this cup the way the Americans kept the Americas, the way the New York Yacht Club kept the America's Cup for 132 years, until what happened? They raced for it and lost, and haven't had it since. More rocket. I don't know how to get rid of this thing on the bottom. This is very appropriate. We're in the season. Would you be my Valentine? This is an iceberg. This is a boat that's become more and more popular because it's small, car toppable. You can even stick it in the trunk sticking out. And you can do it on very thin ice, maybe 2 or 3 inches. Well, 3 or 4 inches anyway. This is a regatta day. This was the national sweeps, probably back in '97. These are the Brand brothers, who were guys who, this is in 1940. Do these guys look like a tough bunch of customers or what? Oh, that's Hatchet Brand on the left, and Ochre Brand on the right. Okay, this is a Class A ice boat, also called a Class 3. I forget exactly the sail area. And this is the boat that is really hot these days in the Shrewsbury Club. Here's more safety equipment. We've got a scratcher. Guys are all wearing their helmets and they're hoo-ha. Now, tell you what, let me see if I can do this with this laser pointer here. I want to show you this good example of what a stern steerer looks like. Let's see, is that? I think I have to use my thermometer. So that's around. You have that, huh? Anyway, the backbone is the diagonal piece you see going forward that the sails are attached to. There's the runner plank, which holds the runner, a runner on each end. And then there's a rudder in the back. And this naturally evolved from basically when boats were turned into ice boats, basically by the Dutch in the canals and all of that jazz. Boats have some really unusual habits. One of the things, as you can see, they can go over if the sheet tender doesn't let the sheet out fast enough. And they can also basically just start spinning around like crazy. And everybody on the boat is thrown off, sliding across the ice, maybe for 50 yards. It's really fun to watch. And while people do get hurt doing that, most of the time they don't, because you're just sliding across ice. Hopefully you don't go into the water. It's always the sheet tender's fault.
They start scared, and when the nose, for whatever reason, nose goes down, the front part of the boat, right, the valve, that goes down, the rudder picks up, and that's how it's big. That's the flicker. But you're only like 6 inches off the 6, 8 inches off the ice, but you get blown out. And what you do is you red bag, you get up as you're racing, you get up and you go, where's the hospitals? Jump back in your boat, you start racing again.
I love this picture because it shows Red Bank. It'll be around 1901. It's on the turn of the century. But you've got the Seabird on the right, paddle wheel steamer, and the Albertina on the left, and the ice boats. And this guy's taking a little hike already on the right. More fun and games. Okay, so here, 1929 to 1930, you can see because there's a little date on it. See if I can get rid of this. Don't mess with it, right? Yeah, I know, but you know, this is being zoomed also, so I don't want to. Like, anyway, this is 29 and 30, right? And you can see that everybody has transitioned to the Marconi rigs. And the Marconi rig, for those of you who are not so, is the gaff rig has a boom and it has a gaff. And the gaff is hoisted up the sail, and it often goes higher than the mast. And the idea is that they're kind of approaching the Marconi rig. And I think what let the Marconi rig take precedence is it's a more efficient sail plan, but also I think they were getting the mechanics down so they can make taller masts, and they didn't need the gaff to raise the peak of the sail above the shorter mast. This is 1940. A boat being put back on its feet or its runners. This is a boat that's gone broken. You can see the DN that's the mast has come down on. It happens. This is a Currier and Ives print, I think. Well, staff artist. And you can see this is an ice boat out of control. They don't show the guy sliding across the ice. I thought that was artistic negligence. Okay, and here are a couple of young ladies with she's the sheet tender. She gets blamed. And this is taken by a photographer named Foxwell, who did a lot of the collages that are on the walls of the ice boat upstairs, the club upstairs. Great photographer, and he did all of these things with glass plate cameras, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, he had this big apparatus. He had to take a glass plate out of a carriage, put it into the camera, expose it, take it out. Man, I got to give it to him. Digital photography is pretty easy these days. Now, this is 1940, and there's a Marconi on the left, and the rest of these are gaff riggers. This is one of the illustrations. Bunch of crusty old guys. Now these are skeeters. I'm sorry you can't see the hole so much, but this is the transition to front steering ice boats, which are called skeeters because they kind of look like a mosquito. If you can see the third one from the left, it's got a little mosquito emblem on the top. N means Navesink, our club. And the front steerers, almost all of the front steering ice boats you'll see will have a maximum sail area of 75 square feet. Sometimes the mast itself is included in that. Sometimes it's not. I don't know quite all the rules on it. But the stern steerers had massive amounts of sails. I mean, some of them, especially in the late 1880s, had 1,000 or 2,000 square feet of sail. And the skeeters are faster. I have a skeeter. That's what a Yankee is. Now, this is back then, and this is back now. And he's going up the mast of the rock. You can see the name on the lower left. Now, this is a DN ice boat. And the DN is named after a contest that the Detroit News had to build an affordable car-toppable ice boat. And it started out then, and it was really, you could build it in your garage. It was pretty rudimentary. But it's an open class. It's got certain restrictions, 16 feet long. I think the runner plank is, maybe it's 8, I don't know. But the mast here is carbon fiber. And by bending like that in a tuff, it releases that energy and springs you forward. Okay, so there are a couple of areas like that in an ice boat. One is the plank that when a gust hits, it loads up and then it springs out. It stores the energy and then it goes out. And the curved carbon fiber mast. And this was probably invented only maybe 20 years ago, but it's totally dominated the sport. And we have some very good DN sailors in our club. Here's the Buckaroo. Now I think these are Yankees. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they are. More DN now. Yeah, these are arrows. But as you can see with the DN, you're on your back, you're holding your neck up like this. And the best way to practice for it is you get into the back of a pickup truck, have the guy drive the bumpiest road he can while his partner throws ice cubes in your face. Okay, here's arrows, another popular class. A number of years ago, this was a really hot class. A guy named Art Cavallo was spark plugging it. And what it really takes for a class to be popular is for some person or small group of people to whip everybody into shape and make sure they show up to the regattas, they get out on the race course, and shame them if they don't. (1977) Gold Cup, and these are all DNs. Now I think there's that rebel again. And these are e-skeeters, which again have only 75 feet of sail, but you can see how the masts have gotten larger and wider. And these are the boats that'll approach 100 miles an hour. But, you know, they're not built for straight line speed. They're built for going around a course. So they've got to be good upwind. They got to be good downwind. When you do a purpose-built ice boat, generally speaking, it'll be a proa. Same way in the land sailing, they'll have a hull and then they'll have an outrigger to keep it only on one side because they're only measuring the speed going in one direction. Another Yankee, Navesink. This is the famous Buddy Melgis out on Lake Geneva. World famous Buddy Melgis. He won an America's Cup. And his boats are called Honey Bucket. And this is Honey Bucket 11.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that great? So this was when there was ice in the Chesapeake. I'm not exactly sure which river, the Chop Tank, maybe somebody here may know. But this was back in the 70s. People came from all over to sail on water down there. And you can see the geese. Well, it was like raining from the geese. And the runners got dull going through the Goose Effluvian. This is a lineup of Yankees. And on Lake Champlain in 1914, there's that rebel again, third from the right, and the Emily M. Actually, the Emily M's third from the right. Mark is fifth. But you could see how we get a whole bunch of boats out there to race when we have wind. The only way you can take a picture like this is when it's dead calm.
How often is Lake Champlain freezing?
You know, there are a number of things that make for good ice boating. One is nice, hard, thick, smooth ice, and the other is absence of snow. So I think that Lake Champlain freezes most years, but it may be snowed over in the best places. There is a race that goes from Sheffield, I think it is, or Mallett's Bay anyway, to the northern end of Champlain and back. I think it's 100 miles or maybe less. And I've done that with another guy my size in the Yankee. And every time we'd hit a little hole, wham, the plank would go down. We were lucky we didn't break it. We did it both ways. And that's quite an achievement. That's called doing, is this Winnie? Actually, this is Winnipesaukee. Winnie the hard way. Yeah, that's a ticket.
Can't be a hard way.
Okay, another bubble boat. Bubble boats are e-skaters. Now, this is Danny and Dave Clapp. I think this is Dave and Danny when they were kids. Dan Clapp is really a champion. He held the ISAs for 10 years. He and Tommy Nichols, I'll show you. Let's see, is Tommy here? Yeah, that's Tommy holding the trophy on the far left. Then there's Billy Stavola. This is on Lake Geneva. Danny Clapp. I'm not sure who that is. And Buddy Melges. There's Danny. And this was his, no, Lake Geneva was in Wisconsin. And this is the trailer that Danny put together with all his boats. Let's say all these are his kids. And this is Insanity. This was his latest ice boat. Now, the interesting thing is that 20 years ago, New Jersey, basically Tommy Nichols from the Hapatcon Club and Danny from the Red Bag Club, totally dominated the design and the racing of these boats. As I said, Danny won 10 ISA championships, International Skeeter Association. But because of lack of ice here, and there was ice out there, all of these boats were sold out to the west. And now there are no bubble boats on the East Coast. They're all on the West Coast and fighting it out amongst themselves. And they're building some pretty fast boats themselves. But a boat like this will go for 50 grand. And that's more or less selling it at cost.
West Coast.
Oh, the Midwest. Midwest. There is virtually no ice boating on the West Coast. I'm not sure why that is. Like Tahoe, maybe it's too deep. Yeah, they have their lakes, but either they have snow on them or they're too deep to really, get a good batch of ice. But when you go out to some place like Lake Geneva or Oshkosh, the ice is so thick that the trucks are all out there. I mean, there are dump trucks out there clearing an area so the ice boats can set up. The pressure ridges can be when two plates of ice bunch up against each other. And often that can leave a gap of water of maybe as much as 6 feet, maybe 10 feet. That's very dangerous. And the one time actually my boat went in the water was hitting a pressure ridge that I didn't see. One of the runner planks went in, twisted it all off the boat. The mast fell down, all of that good stuff. And I didn't get wet because I was able to walk off on the plank that was still on the ice. And luckily, I had a cell phone with me. And even more luckily, somebody was listening to their cell phone and came out and helped me get out and towed me back in. All right, this is the clubhouse. This is the basement, the workshop part of the clubhouse. And here is somebody working on the backbone and refinishing it. You can see what a nice job they do refinishing it. Rick Peterson's a professional boat refinisher. More scary guys. professional boat refinisher, and he can do a varnish job like you wouldn't believe. Luckily, in the 40s, one of the club members' daughters came in with a 4x5 camera, George Finier's daughter, and took a picture of each one of these. So we've got perfectly preserved 4x5 negatives of virtually every picture here, including individuals on these collages. And these collages are absolutely fabulous. Now they are starting to fade. So one of the things I've done is taking the collage, taking them down, finding the negatives that conform to the various pictures, which I've digitized, and then printing them and putting them back up. And I flipped this around so the originals are still there, but these are new prints on the outside. Beautiful, thank you. Now, if we're only frozen. Gee, and I love it. So this is the upstairs room of the clubhouse, and the thing is just covered with memorabilia, trophies, and books. This is one of the elder. This is one of the New York. Oh no, this is the Kitty, and it's from the NSIBYC. There was a rivalry. I won't get into it. Here's another shot of the clubhouse, and over here on the right is the rocket cockpit that got refurbished. Now, on a race day on Red Bank, you had just tons of people. I mean, it was a winter carnival all the time through. There was enough ice, and this is actually coming down from the Little Ice Age. It's been getting warmer since, but back then, and actually it was coming out of the Little Ice Age even back in the 1880s. I think that the coldest portion was probably around the Revolutionary War. The 1750s, the 18th century was very cold, and now it's warming up from there. This is the rocket cockpit, and there's a piece of glass on top of it. And this is where we hold the executive meetings and club meetings, a couple of old timers. And, these guys look like they're going fast, but they had a big camera with glass plates, and they're probably having to stay as still as they possibly can. This is the clubhouse, and this is across the parking lot from the Monmouth Club, if you want to know its location. There's there are the stern steers. Can't see the name on that, but that's probably the Albertine. It's probably the same day. Bunch of lateen rig, and lateen rig is where you've got two masts coming down to the outer portions, and then a gaff that comes up and a boom, and the gaff is raised between these two upright masts. Okay, 3 lateens and a gaff, 2 gaffs, and 2 gaffs on the right.
Between the two, right, Jeff? In other words, the gaps ended up being fast, but not a hell of a right?
I think considerably. Whoop, here we go again. My guess is that the gaffs were better upwind, right? And then probably downwind it was a wash. But if you can establish dominance at the upwind pin and still keep your speed up downwind, you're probably going to win. After you, ladies. I'd love to see somebody do that these days, where you got people on the runner plank, and it looks like a party. the sailors. This is Foxwell, the photographer again. He had a very successful business and he did a great job. This is Irwin, right? Irwin Yachtworks. And the story I've heard about him, and maybe one of the other members can confirm it. At one point, he built a boat called the Georgie. And it was, I think it had a smaller sail plan than the other boats. And generally speaking, as the sail plans went down, the boats went faster. So he had this boat, the Georgie, and his friendly competitors claimed he was running afoul of the rules. And so he said, all right, I won't sail the Georgie. And he never got it on the ice for 20 years. He just snubbed them all. I don't know if this is this Irwin. I think it is. Okay, let's see where we are here. All right. Here's one of the intrepid photographers out there shooting these pictures. I got to say, I really love.
Nice street skates too.
Now here's yeah. Here are guys out there checking the ice. This is an ice bird. Yeah, and now this is a painting by Bob Scherfen. And you can buy these at the, you can buy prints of these at the Atlantic Highlands Arts Council, or you can contact Bob Scherfen. He's got a lot of beautiful stuff. He's really a tremendous artist. A bunch of Latin rigs. This is Papillon. That's probably Dave Clapp. Again, the old ice boat. I mean, if you can see how, I mean, these things are, those spars are massive. These are the couple of bubble boats. I wish, no, this isn't the one. There's one where you've got an ice boat racing a motorcycle. And the ice boat is winning. I mean, this shows that March of 47, ice boating was really a thing. You know, could even make the cover of Archie Comics. Now, this is a race, probably the national sweeps. There sure are a lot of, there are all kinds of ice boats. There are small ones and big ones. And no, this, I think this is Red Bank. No, maybe you're right. Maybe it is the Hudson. That's the Hudson. Rocket first class ice boat. Dave Hoder, you know, on the rocks. Me and Emily M. Before I put the name on. Now, this is a South Bay scooter. And it doesn't have a runner plank. It's got angle irons basically on the bottom. It doesn't have a tiller. You steer this boat by bringing the sheet in and out and adjusting your weight. And I think they're the coolest ice boats on the ice. These beat the bubble boats hands down. Now, if you'll, beg your pardon? It looks like a galleon, you know, it seems to me. Well, the hull looks like a turtle and it looks like a galleon. Boat on a hike. Now, let me see if I can. Navesink. Let me see if I can find a video that great Henry Bossett took. I can get to it. Now, this is one of the South Bay scooters. It's a small one, single guy on.
What year is that?
Pretty recent. I would say within the past 5 years anyway, if not earlier. And this is up in Bandom Lake. And as Henry said, perfect ice, beautiful sun, couldn't have been a better day for it, and very nice drone work. On the bottom. There are angle irons on the bottom.
You steer it just with your weight?
With your weight and with the sails.
Oh, right?
He's all right. There was a spot back there. It looked like it was open. It really wasn't. There was a little skim on it, and that made it dangerous. This is Bandom Lake, which is up near Litchfield and that very fancy Connecticut area.
If it went through the ice.
Good question. If it went through the ice, would it float? And that's built in the Great South Bay, where you had open patches of water. And theoretically, if you were going fast enough, you could skim over the water, get onto the ice, and it actually can happen. I mean, I've seen it done, or I've heard about it being done. And I think it's, but you wouldn't want the water to be too wide, because it would go over. All right, so let's see how I get out of here. And because we're going to talk about it, I want to show you another one that Henry did. A couple of the guys in the club, Bill, Fleet Winter captain of the Shrewsbury Club, are building wing masts. And Danny Clapp built a wing mast. They basically put them on a DL frame, but they're pretty cool. And like the America's Cup, where they use wing masts, they're using them on ice boats too. But I think they're a pain in the ass. But Danny's got a great way with graphics. I mean, this is, and he, as far as I know, he's given up ice boating. This was one of the last ones he built. He lives in Maine. And as far as I know, there's an ice boat. Jim Gerbolino is the name of the guy from, but he's scooting along there pretty good. Okay, so here you're coming towards a Port Starb situation. And nice, he's turning up, he's chasing the guy, but not sure what that other boat was, but he's doing all right. All right, I'm gonna. Enough of this. All right, let's see where we go. Hey, what I've been gabbing on about 50 minutes, and we've got an awful lot of other boats other videos to do. Let me just show you a couple of the old ice boats. This is a boat called the Scud, and it was made in Red Bank to go challenge the guys up in the Hudson. And I don't think they won the Van Nostrand Cup. One race we won the Van Nostrand Cup, and we held on to it. Here is Danny Vogt and his two daughters on the whatever he was on. These are the guys from Orange Lake. Yankees again. All righty, let's Let's go to Greg Strand. Ice boating in the Navesink, the late Charlie Ladulis, RIP.
Williams?
It's maxed out. We don't have speakers, unfortunately. Let me ask you this. Is this too dim for anybody to hear? In other words, can you hear it at all? Oh, you got speakers? Okay. Great, I'm sorry, not late. Greg's in the back here. The great Greg Strand. AC. Can we turn the AC down? The fan?
That's what comes with your. We're not smart, not wild. Dialogue. heard out here. I. Notice on the. But tell you people that don't know much about ice boating, how it all started. I do know the Dutch settlers came here to the now. John wrote about how the icicle, the first icicle was built in 1879. She was 16 feet 10 inches long, carried 1,007 square feet of sail. This boat was horrendous, very, very big. And it took a crew, a big crew to do it. But again, she was of the old design. That boat in 1871 supposedly raced against stop a couple times, but I don't know. To pick up passengers, but I don't know. But I can't see a boat of that size going faster than 40 or 50 miles an hour. Our boat was formed in 1880. 1984, I believe the Scud was built. And the Scud was built to go up and challenged it for that race up there. The Jack Frost was 1883. The Icicle was 1882. The Van Nostrand Cup was put up by Gardner Van Nostrand out of Orange Lake in 1889. And it's a 30 ounce, 70 ounces of silver. It's a cup that was reduced. Tiffany's, a beautiful cup. And of all things, the only cup that we won up there was that cup in 1891. And consequently, it's been raced for 2 times since. I'll refer to that in a few minutes. But that boat, the rocket was really put there for that reason. And never materialized. That boat couldn't handle going up, and then it fell on bad times. We had another boat called the Dreadnought. The Dreadnought was run by Cap Irwin over here at the Irwin's Yacht Works. They were a tremendous family of ice boaters. Very good ice boaters, by the way. But again, they couldn't win that race on the Hudson River. But anyhow, the challenges were cool. We traveled with these boats out of my club. Now, in 1880, after the big boats that kind of died, turned 1910, 1920, they were pretty much all gone. The Class 3 boat, models here. This is a Class 3 boat, smaller one. That was a Class 1. It's missing the jib, but that Class 1 boat is much bigger, as you can see. 50 feet down to 30 or 32 feet on the Class 3. A track of 25 to 30 on the big boat, and the track over here, maybe anywhere from 15 to 20 on the smaller.
They were easier to handle, and they were more conducive to the sailing conditions that we got here. And they blossomed out. I figure about from the turn of the century on here, we probably had 45 to 50 big boats between this club and the Braves Club. The draw is the lure of that boating, because when you sail these things, I don't care how good a sailor you are, and I am by far not a good one, but that thing will kick your butt when you sail that thing. And you're talking 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour, you're 6 inches off the deck, and when she decides that she's going to throw you off, you're going off. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I love the ride on the edge. To me, that's the lure. But you have a sheet tender that's sailing with you, and you can blame everything on him. So he's not letting out the sheet. Or
I stole that joke.
playing because it took me at a race, it would take me 2.5 hours, 3 hours to assemble everybody's boat plus mine. And I said, my God, I'm going to make a trailer that I could assemble my boat in an hour and I'm good to go. Guess what? I forgot I have to help everybody else do theirs. So I'm still up to 2.5, 3 hours. And Red Bank was a commercial hub, particularly for tomatoes. They would, come in here and take tomatoes to the city, but we had this beautiful river here and was used to the max. They had ice carnivals. There's pictures of ice carnivals here on. People would come down, sit on a seat, I think with a penny, and sit there all day. And they put a little pot underneath you with some hot coals to keep your push warm. A lot of people say speed records. They always talk about speed records. They said the Scud on the Hudson River exceeded 109 miles an hour in 1891. I don't know if I'd want to be on that baby. I don't know if I can ever see that. But then it gets better. Over in Long Branch, a boat called the Clarelle in 1909 was supposed to have exceeded 142 miles an hour. 3 men were timing it on a run. Now, in those days, they ran a triangle course, so there's space out there, but not a lot of space. But I also found out from talking to the old timers that helped me out that the men that timed her were working in the Rumson Country Club, having some extracurricular beverages. So I don't know if that was a true fact, but 142 miles an hour, who knows? But at any rate, they sailed out of the Rumson Country Club in 1909. They had a tremendous group of people that ran their boats, and they would swap boats out. It was not unusual to have a boat be at Red Bank or Long Branch or Red Bank. Or Rumson, and go around the hub. And as long as they were sailing, that's all they believed in, is to sail these things. And that's what we have to do. We're worried about our future. Young people wanting to get into the sport. And it's scary to think. We have so many other things out of our capabilities. And, we want to bring young people in. So anytime a young person comes down here, or anybody in particular, we give them a run. And we try to give them as much friendliness and take them into the ice boat club, see that. But, it's hard to keep somebody interested in it when the ice is not here all the time. I'm going to tell you, if you ever get an experience to go on it, do it. You're going to love it. Yeah.
You raised it, that is there a real global warming decline as far as real floating ice is concerned?
I don't think so. I think it's been cyclical all that time. I just don't buy into it too much about the global warming side of it. I don't know about that. I think it's every 10 years. That's the way it's going to be. It has. I've looked through the records all the way back in the 1880s. Every 10 years is a major big length of time. You ready? Okay. Sorry. This is in 2003. So that's me in front of all of it. I tried for 37 years to get on the ice up at the Hudson, and we got them all. That's a Latine rig. Latine. That's the last one in existence that's still sailing. That was a Roosevelt boat. And the Latines were on the Long Branch River and the Red Bank River. Look at panning up to that big sail there. Thank you so much.
Now, Greg is with us tonight. Greg, you want to come up and say a few words?
So long, I started as a young boy, and ironically, I can't swim. But ice breaks your deep crap, So I've sailed and I've won a lot of championships in my day.
And, it's so wonderful to sail the big boats because, you have to be very, very good at being able to, sail it. And when I made I made a new mast for my boat. I bought a tree in British Columbia and had the lumber brought down to White Plains, New York, where I had it milled, and I made a mast that was 16 inches wide and 36 feet high, and I had it leaning back about 6 feet at the top when it was put on the boat. So I was using the mast as a sail area also, and so she was capable of some very, very high speeds. And unfortunately, when you build something like that, your competitors, beating them, they don't want to race with you again. I had a race out of a different part of the East Coast to race with other sailors. And up at the Hudson, they adopted me in their ice boat club. They didn't care if I had that big stick or not. So I was able to sail with those guys. But it was a labor of love. And then everything kind of died for me. I can't swim. I might have repeated myself, but the ice broke, and my good friend Jackie Mulvihill, who's sitting here, I got a 50 shot at trying to escape it when the ice broke. I figured I'd jump, and I had a 50-50 shot to either land on top of the ice or under the ice. Well, guess what? I went under the ice, and there was this big void. It was beautiful under there. Void of air, and I was able to breathe. But I learned when I was a young man to look for the dark spot and not the white spot. The dark spot was the sky, and I was able to work my way across the underside of the ice to get to the hole, and couldn't get out of the hole. And Jackie was my sheet tender, and fortunately he came back to help me. Otherwise, I was down for the count. And so he helped me out, and we got back to the boat, and I was frozen solid, and I was thanking God that I sang it right. So they came to rescue me and take me in the ice boat club, where I disrobed because I was frozen, and it off some lady to give me something. And of course, I had no clothes on. I was so embarrassed. I went back ice boating a few more times, but I never wore a life jacket. But you know, my days of ice boating are over now. But I certainly enjoyed every part of my ice boating experience. My poor wife lived with me through all those years, 51 years of ice boating.
Jackie, do you want to say a few words? Jackie Mulvihill, you want to say a few words?
That was a scary day. We both went back, had a pair of tires dropped. We went around, we were coming around a little bit like the boulder. And when we went in, I don't know if anybody remembers the TV movie, The Silent Service, when I was a kid. That's when I was in a submarine on big jump off. The funny thing, there was a guy there in the Highlands, he started to go up the road. I don't think it's not painted that. You know, but the funny thing was, he in the border like that, and we're looking towards the stuff. And we've had a scratcher. You saw the picture of our red scratcher that, you saw the picture of our red scratcher there, that ATV. Well, back then we had a homemade one with a wooden boat on it.
with a Briggs and Stratton engine and a chain that they'd made up, and it was all made with pieces of what was like conduit, I think, Greg. And we're sitting there watching them, and they're over there. They couldn't get it started to come over and get us, and we were pulling. And I said to Greg, we got to get out of here. And so when we were over by the boat again, I said the top of the boat was on the ice. And so I started walking up the keel and getting Greg to go with me. And Greg says, no, don't go up the keel with your creepers on. Well, at that point, it didn't matter. And I think he was mad at me after that. But it didn't hurt the boat any. It was okay. That was a great boat to pet. And like Greg says, he built that mask on there. He put that Marconi rig on there, and it always was a Marconi rig. And it was owned by Ben Atwater, and all those guys. I've been down at that club since I've been 8 years old. My whole family ice boated and had a lot of boats. One of those pictures he had, I saw my father and me sailing. And I beat my father that year, and they gave my father a rope with a plaque on it to throw to me to help pull him around the race. And that was the picture of the Buckaroo, the spare parts. The Buckaroo my father bought in 1938 in out west. And when Jeff says out west, that was Wisconsin and Michigan. My father had it shipped in to the railroad station in Red Bank, but he had no way to. I live in Fairhaven. He had no way to get it there. So my uncle's father, they were great. Jesse Howland. The Howlands built all the jetties and seawalls and stuff out of Seabright, and his father, and then they all sailed the smaller sea boats, and they went up to the railroad station and put it on the trailer and brought it home for my father. And I still have that boat today and sail it. And they were called a mead boat. When Jeff was talking about that, they were skeeters, but they were meads, and they were made out in Michigan. They were a very popular boat. David here, David Mitten, whose family were great ice boaters, he still has one called the Ouija, and that was owned by a fellow named Bob Wilcox. When Bob passed away, and it was originally brought out west by the people that owned Seals Easterns in Red Bank. Colbert Smith, and my father and a bunch of them went over and talked him out of the boat, but he had a little bottle problem, so they had to go back the next day to get the boat. But and they were all those skeeters, what Jeff was pointing out with the way before the bubble boats, when they sailed them, they were all one, whether they were the Yankees or they were the skeeters. Like that one my father built, he called it the spare parts because it was all the extra parts he had. And they sailed them all together. Now they sail them in different classes, the Yankees, and then they sail the skeeters. Then there's a smaller, they call it a C class, which is a smaller rig on them, and they're easier to transport and stuff. A Yankee is, I think Jeff will tell you, they're heavy boats.
About 450 pounds.
Yeah, but they're nice, like Jeff said. Compared to an A boat where you're laying down and so forth, they're like a Cadillac. And back in 1958, the club decided to build skeeters, build 12 Yankees, because the A boats, the guys like my father's age and stuff were after the war and stuff got into the club, and then they wanted to build something that, front steerers now were becoming more popular, and when the DNs became popular. But this was 58, and they built 12 of them, and they built them up in Middletown, where the ShopRite is on 35. There's a funeral home across the street there, just north of that. And that was Miller Plating, and Ira Miller was he became president of our club after that, but he gave the building to let everybody build their boats. They went up every 2 days a week and they built the 12 boats. They numbered them all, and then at the end you picked them out, and then you went home and you finished them. My family had a boatyard in Fairhaven, in Red Bank, and a motel and restaurant. So we were able to bring ours back, and it was a bowling alley my grandfather had underneath, and we finished them in there. And I'd say there's probably 4 or 5 of them still around that are still sailing because we have that ice. But that was the beginning of those boats. And then if you remember, you saw one picture there he had, it was the Dynamite. I don't know if you remember that picture of the skeeters there. That was my uncle, Don Hubbard, and he was a great sailor. And he built that one in our bowling alley, and he got the plans from out west from a by the name of Bill Cumberline, who was a great ice boater with Melgis and all those guys. And he built
Jackie,
that.
they were called the Dirty Dozen.
Well, yes, well they call them now the Yankees, yeah.
Do we, are there any questions for Greg, Jackie, or myself? I'd say I had one more video that I was going to put up of Bob Pulsh
Thank you.
on restoring the Class 1 ice boat, the Rocket. But you know, the sound isn't really good on that video, and I'm afraid under these conditions, it wouldn't be as good as possible. But you know, if you go to NSIBYC.com, I'm sorry, NSIBYC.smugmug.com, you'll see all of this stuff. You know, just explore around under videos and presentations and racing. There's really a wealth of stuff, and you can see that ice boat there. But we'll be going on for about an hour and a quarter. Are there any questions? Yeah.
They test the ice by driving a car on it.
Well, that's one way to test it, and it's sort of like losing your car at the launch ramp. And by the way, and that's a serious question, especially in places like Lake Champlain, they do a lot of driving their Jeeps and their trucks out on the ice, and they hit a pressure ridge and go through, and it costs them $1,000 a day because of the pollution from the oil and the gas till they get that thing out of there. And there are firms that specialize in pulling trucks and cars out of Lake Champlain.
Jeff,
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to, if you could tell the people on how they build a running plank for boats. We start, running plank is the long with plank, rudder sitting on either end. And then you've got a newer boat, fiberglass, that sits on top. And typically the running planks in newer boats, they're built with a bow in it. Tell how the boat is built.
Well, we've got a jig up in the club with a whole bunch of clamps on it. And the rudder plank is laminated, put together with West System epoxy, and then the clamps are cranked down to let it dry.
They steam? Sometimes they steam?
I guess sometimes they steam them too. And on the new A boats, they've got styrofoam with carbon fiber on the outside. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Meeting is okay. They some of those numbers up.
Thanks, Jeff, for this presentation. Ice boating is always the favorite subject when we have a presentation on it. I want to thank everybody. Would like to leave a donation, feel free. The jar is right there. And our next presentation will be about a museum setup, about a proposal for museums, which I will be presenting, that relates to merchant mariner training, merchant mariner awareness, and museums on the Smithsonian level with regard to commerce. It will be in March. Thank you all for coming.
Oh, good. Thank you. Oh, I bet. Yeah, he's in the back there.
That I can have a little eye clip on it.
Well, the Rocket and the Jack Frost raced up on the Hudson in 2014 when the Rocket first got on. And I got to say, the Jack Frost kicked the Rocket's ass. It wasn't until the Rocket reduced their sail area from about 1,000 square feet to about 550 that they were somewhat competitive. But you know, the Jack Frost has had 100 years of tune-up, and the Rockets had maybe 3 times on the ice. The other thing is, the Rocket has a cantilevered mast. It's got a bowed portion on top with a bunch of spindles, and it keeps the mast too stiff. I think it was a design flaw, and so the guys who are in charge of the Rocket are working all of this stuff out. I mean, you know, hopefully we're going to be racing these 2 boats for another 100 years.
Jim,
Yeah.
franchising that. Jim wants to try and get the excellence down when there's enough ice for it.
Yeah. Oh, please. Now, but the Excellency is a class 3 or an A boat, right? Well, listen, more the merrier. Bring it in. Go for the Van Nostrand Cup. But usually what happens is the Hudson River Club gets their dibs in real early in order to challenge for these things.
Don't forget, we got the turkey over by,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, hey, listen, it's all good sport. Yeah.
That's that great folk for
Yeah, indeed.
He's a small creek, seems like a navy, a couple of bodies away.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's fine. Hey, how are you, Joel? Yeah. Nice talking to you.
Kept saying Bob